Okay, welcome back, you guys. This is going to be part 2 of the Void Stalker Limbo tutorial. As you can see right now, we are in ZBrush. I am currently going to go ahead and start sculpting. Obviously, this is going to be recorded afterwards. You're currently watching it sped up about 600, almost 700%. So I understand it's going to be a little bit hard to follow along. Like I said, though, before, this really isn't a tutorial on how to do sculpting or anything like that. This is just really more for people who are interested to see what my process was on how I made the Void Stalker Limbo. I'll go ahead and kind of explain what I'm doing as I see it. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll be more than happy to respond to it and let you know what's going on. Yeah. So right here, currently I'm just trying to find, like I said before, you can't really change the geometry of the mesh itself. So I'm trying to figure out, places right now that are kind of, stuck in the way that they are, and just trying to kind of flesh out some kind of design that will work with the detail that is already there. Right now, currently, I also do not have any kind of reference of Limbo pulled up. I don't want his original design to really influence what I'm doing. So you can see right now I'm just kind of going in. I have kind of a basic idea of what I want to do, but you're going to see that I'm going to start doing things. I'm going to go ahead and delete things as well. I'm just kind of really playing with things right now. So right now I'm going ahead and hiding everything that I don't need, so that way it's not in my way. And now I'm just kind of masking out the arms, so that way I can get them out of the way of the torso, because the torso is what I want to start off with. It's always just kind of how I've done things. I feel like once you have the torso kind of built, or the head, you can go ahead and it really dictates the way the rest of everything is going to look. So, I'm just kind of making polygroups right now, so that way it's easy to kind of pull those apart. You can see that I just did a quick retopology, so that way I had a little bit more polygons to work with. Trying to keep it relatively low right now, just so that way I don't find myself basically, if you're working in a really high resolution from the beginning, it's really hard to kind of change the underlying shape, which in this case would actually kind of be beneficial, just because I don't want to be changing the underlying geometry all that much. You can see I'm kind of going in and smoothing out some detail that I know I don't want, because that'll make it easier for me not to see those shapes. You can see right here that I just moved over to the light gray material. I just find it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing, and you can see right now I've just kind of found a piece of armor that I feel like I can incorporate in the design. So I'm kind of fleshing that out a little bit. So you can see that I'm also, I have other tools open, so that way I can kind of see what's going on. with the model and everything like that. Right now I threw it into 3ds Max. Basically what I'm looking at is how are the excuse me, how are the UVs laid out? How much room do I have to do asymmetric kind of details? So from there I recognized that the front of the mesh, or the front of his jacket, is non-symmetrical, meaning that I can do asymmetric details, but his back, his arms, his legs are all symmetrical. So even if I wanted to do something special on one side and not on the other side, it really wouldn't work out, just because when I bake the high details, it is going to prevent me from baking two separate sides. That's because the UVs, or basically the texture layout, is already set for me. In other 3D models, ones that I'm making, that's something that comes into mind beforehand. I say, what kind of details am I going to want to put in this thing, and from there I'll go ahead and lay out my UVs accordingly. However, as I've said multiple times, DE doesn't really want people changing anything particular about the model. They just want to be able to slap on new textures, especially with the skins for the body. So, it's imperative that you don't change anything. So here I'm kind of getting an idea of what I want to do. I'm thinking, I liked the tuxedo look. I thought it was a cool kind of take on the Warframe. However, I wanted it to look a little bit more battle capable. So I'm kind of making a coat right now that's going to be, looks a little bit more menacing. So I'm kind of thinking about Victorian kind of coats. The example of Bloodborne comes up a lot, and I would say that this is pretty heavily influenced by that style. I've always been really I've always really liked that style of design, so it's no surprise that kind of followed through in my own design of Limbo. And you can see that I'll start off, and then that idea will go ahead and start populating in my head a little bit more and more as I go. Like I said, I'm recording this afterwards, so you can kind of see right now I'm still very much in the discovery phase. I'm doing some detail, but I'm not trying to get too involved in what the details are. Especially because I haven't really fleshed out, what exactly I want everything to look like. So, I'm just experimenting right now. I'm just trying things out, seeing how I like things, and that'll kind of dictate other things. So you can see I'm just trying different stuff, seeing if I really like anything, but keeping it loose so that way I don't have time invested in doing all these changes and everything like that. So at this point, I feel pretty confident in the way that this front flap area is kind of looking. So I'm not too hesitant about, actually making or committing to that kind of design and fleshing it out a little bit more. You can see I just jumped into Warframe itself. Now I'm kind of looking at Limbo, seeing what he looks like. Just so that way I can make sure that, one, I'm sticking true to his character, but also, not just copying it. So you can see that I'm remeshing right here, just once again to get a little bit more geometry where I'm going. Basically, I'll sculpt until I find that I'm not getting the geometry that I want. You can also see that I'm making duplicates, so that way when that remesh kind of gets rid of some detail that I've been working on, I can reproject it easily. I'm a pretty big fan of creating layers. I think that it, makes it more interesting to look at. So you can see that I'm just kind of adding layers as I see places that I can. So right there, I just kind of pop the head just to see what part of the texture I'm going to be actually seeing. There's not a whole lot of point in, putting in a lot of effort to make something that you're not going to see. If it's a personal project, then I mean that's personal preference, but in something like this, I don't want to take a whole lot of time on it. I wanted to make it, look the way that I want it, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, perfecting detail that nobody's actually going to get to look at. Because basically after this, I mean, the whole goal of this is to get it in the game. So I'm going to spend more time on things that people are going to see. You're also going to see here pretty soon that I'm going to start putting in like ribs, and that was going back to I want it to look like the Void has taken something from this guy, but it's also important to not be too literal with your designs. So I end up making a rib design that I feel is more akin to what Warframe actually looks like. And that's important as well because you don't want your design to not look like it fits in with the game, because then there's a very slim chance of it even getting in. And once again, that's the goal. So you can see that I kind of jump around the model as I go. I kind of feel like it's important not to stick too long in one area because you might lose sight of the bigger picture. So you can see that basically through this whole process, I'm going to be jumping back and around, and right now I'm just kind of building up, material, so that way it's another layer. So you can see right now I just added the ambient occlusion of the original model onto the first one, and you can see as well I'm just kind of jumping into Marmoset with the original model, just kind of get a good idea of what it looks like. Like I said, I jumped in very quickly without taking a look at what it looked like, just so that way I would have it fresh in my mind. But now that I kind of have an idea of the direction I want to go with it, it's not as detrimental to take a look at the original one. You can see right now this is what I'm talking about when I was adding these weird kind of rib looking things. So you'll see that this gets abandoned pretty quickly. So I know this must be hard to look at with me, flying things around. However, like I said, I'm kind of jumping in for maybe a minute or two, just quickly taking a look at what I can do with it, just to make sure that, I have a good idea of what Limbo looks like, what his aesthetics are, and can follow them accurately. But yeah. So the whole idea between these ribs was I had a character that I had created a long time ago that had these kind of ribs on his armor. And it worked for that character because, you know, he was in a fantasy setting and it was basically dragon armor, so it was very Monster Hunter-esque, and, you know, it fit in that world. However, ribs in this setting are not gonna really fly. It's not gonna work out that well. So you can see I just kind of left that area alone, kind of done with it. You can see I'm jumping back and forth between that, trying to get an idea of what I want to do exactly. Not really ready to abandon it yet, so I'm going ahead and fleshing things out. And right now I'm just kind of checking to make sure that my geometry is not protruding too far out of the initial model. Normal maps can do a lot for you, but the more you push it out of the original model's scope, the more weird things are going to look. It's when you start getting artifacts and when things just really don't start to or keep making sense for you. And you can see now I've decided, you know, forget it. Don't like these ribs. It's not a good idea. But you'll see that they kind of left behind something. Kind of these little bumps and everything like that. And there, that kind of gave me an idea of what I wanted to do. So you'll see I actually kind of used the remnant details right here. You can see I was like, oh, look at that. So, you know, even that mistake, even though I spent, you know, probably about 30 minutes on it, it definitely paid off in the end. It gave me the idea that I ended up using. So, you know, don't be afraid to experiment. You might find that, you know, a failure will actually lead to, you know, a brilliant discovery. Brilliant. And there you go. You can see that I now have my design. You can see that I start fleshing it out immediately because I can feel it. I really like this idea. It still gives me the impression of ribs, but in a much more Warframe aesthetic. So. And that's the thing, is once you have an idea nailed down, I'm kind of in the camp that says just go with it, follow your guts and do what they tell you, because you're gonna know right away whether or not you like something. So you can see I'm just kind of flipping back and forth, making sure that that's not too far protruded, and I've decided that no, that's gonna be more than fine. The normal map will be able to take care of that information. And it does, so we're all set. So now I've decided to go ahead and move on to the back and just kind of start fleshing that area out. So now you can see I do have symmetry on, and that's because I know that the back is completely symmetrical, so there's no point in trying to replicate anything that I'm doing. Just make sure that I have it set up, and by putting symmetry on, I can ensure that everything looks exactly the same and is going to bake correctly. So this is kind of the idea that I, things just kind of come to you while you're working. I was also listening to the Necronomicon, so Call of Cthulhu and all of those kind of things as well during this time, as well as watching playthroughs of Bloodborne. So I had that kind of idea in my head, and it was just further solidified by the choices that I was making. So I kind of got this idea for kind of a grotesque flesh underneath, not human, kind of an alienish kind of idea, and so that's what I ended up going with, and you'll see that aesthetic kind of carried throughout the rest of the model. Definitely, pull from inspirations that you get wherever you go. That's why people tell you, you have to read, you have to listen to books, you have to, bring in a lot of information. If you watch Jake Parker's channel, he calls it your creative bank account. Before you can make withdrawals from your creative bank account, you need to make deposits, and those deposits are inspiration from other sources, whether they're movies, books, TV shows, whatever you want, you know. So that's basically where that comes from. At this point, I've kind of got a design language built. I know that I like these overlying kind of plates on top of one another, so you know I'm following that design cue. I have these flares coming out of basically everything on top, so that way everything fits underneath perfectly. And that's basically the design language I'm going to be following. And then obviously going to be cutting out chunks of armor and allowing the flesh to be exposed at that point. What's nice about kind of jumping around the model as well is that you know, you have things that aren't finished, and so when you kind of get stumped as to which direction to go, you can always jump back to something that you've already started and just kind of work and refine it a little bit, because that's a little bit more mindless. And so while you're doing that, you can kind of think of which way you want to go with everything. So you can see, you know, I'm not really doing this just all as one. I'm kind of also on Discord and many other things. So you know, I have my it's not called a guild. What is it called in Warframe? Anyway, I have my buddies that I play with all the time, and they were just telling me about the new Tenno costume that came out. So if you haven't played War Within, just play War Within. I won't spoil it, but yeah. So we were kind of geeking out over that. You can see a lot of this process. The quickest part is definitely once I figure out what I'm doing, because at that point, you know, you just kind of get in your groove and you start doing it. If you don't know what you're doing, though, that's when things take a little bit of time, because you're kind of just playing around until you figure something out. So you can see that's kind of the danger of not working with all your parts at once. You can see that I totally forgot that there were the handles hanging off of his back, and they do not line up at all with what I was doing. So you'll see right here in a second, I'm going to go ahead and have to fix that mistake. Now I'm back in Marmoset, just kind of taking a look at what the original like crystalline structure looked like in the back. Once again, not trying to copy anything, just kind of trying to get an idea of what it looks like. So you can see at this point I basically have all of my details put in, or not details, but I have all my designs put in, and at this point it's just going through and putting in the details. So if you just got that, I'm also listening to music on YouTube, and just to get inspired, I have Dark Souls music playing in the back. Alright, so basically I'm just finishing out with some details and everything like that. Thanks for watching. This is part 1. Part 2 will be coming pretty soon. Alright, subscribe and leave a comment. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Alright, later.